Apple pie. Great traditional American dessert. Most everybody loves it. So welcome to Cooking with Parker. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a delicious apple pie using a few different varieties of apples and a homemade pie crust, or you can use store-bought, show that as well. So kind of making two pies, and I can't wait to show you my steps and practices to make a delicious apple pie. This is also the first video in my series, Fruits A to Z. So starting A is for apple, and we'll go through the whole alphabet over the next few months. Hopefully you enjoy the series, and hopefully you enjoy my video today on a delicious apple pie. Let's go.
Start off, we're gonna make a pie crust. So grab a stick of butter and dice it into little cubes and toss it in the freezer so it gets nice and chilled. We're gonna measure out a cup of flour, or actually a cup and a quarter. So a lot of people in baking say you have to be super precise. I mean, if we're not a Great British Baking Show, I don't know if it matters a whole lot. You do wanna be as precise as you can for good results, but it's not gonna break the bank if you aren't exact on, weighing things out. So I like to use a scale, mine's broken right now. And then I also added a quarter teaspoon of salt in there. Making my pie crust in a food processor just makes the process really simple. I'm gonna throw our butter cubes in there, just break them up a little bit. And this is a O-Star Kitchen Center food processor, kind of a vintage piece of equipment my grandmother gave me. But you can use any sort of food processor you can find online as well, and it's just a great tool to have for all sorts of different things. You can use knives, pastry cutters, all that. It's what I do a lot of times as well, but pull this out for certain things such as making a pie crust. So just tossing all the butter in there, and I've gone a couple little batches because this is only a 3-cup food processor. You're gonna just blitz it until you get it almost to a nice little crumb-like structure. And for my pie crust, I'm gonna add just an ounce of vodka. Vodka is gonna cook off, but the alcohol makes there's not as much gluten development, so it's gonna leave your pie crust a little nice and flaky. So then another quarter cup of water. Slowly pour that in while the food processor is working until it comes together as a nice kind of firm dough. Still want it to be a little crumbly, so we're gonna put this on a pastry mat. Use my hands to bring it all together, just knead it a couple times, and then form it into a nice little disc about 1 inch thick. This will help rolling it out easier later. I'm gonna wrap this in plastic wrap, and we're gonna pop this in the fridge to chill. Give it at least 30 minutes, but you can do it the day before. I'm gonna repeat this whole process so we have 2 pie crusts, one for the top and one for the bottom. Or if you have a bigger food processor, just do it all in one batch. Now it's time for the apples. So I've got 2 Granny Smith apples, 2 Fuji apples, and a Cosmic Crisp apple. I'm just gonna peel all these. It's a bit of a hassle, but just kind of go around top to bottom or around the side using a nice sharp peeler. There's tools you can get out there to make this easier, but I just kind of use what I've got. These are all pretty large apples, almost a pound each. So I've got almost 5 pounds of apples here. It's gonna be enough for the 2 pies I'm making. So generally you want 2.5 to 3 pounds of apples for this recipe. I like using a variety of apples for this as well because you kind of get some balance. The Granny Smith, nice and tart. Fuji's are pretty sweet, a little bit softer, so they don't hold up quite as well. And then Cosmic Crisp, it's almost in between the two. Go ahead and save the skins for later. There's all sorts of things you can do with it, like making tea or apple cider vinegar, so you don't want to throw those out. Go ahead and slice these apples up. You can always quarter them down the middle, but it's easier if you just leave the core in the center and then cut around the edges. Have a little bit more waste that way, but you can go back and snack on that later. So just go around all the apples and then just thinly slice them. I like the slices better than like cubes or diced. They'll cook up a little bit quicker and just give nice kind of layers throughout your entire pie. As I said, nice little snack break. Try to have as little waste as possible. Next, we're gonna make a caramel sauce to coat our apples in. So, grabbing another whole stick of butter. I'm gonna cook that over medium-high heat till it's fully melted, or like me being patient, most of the way melted. And then we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of flour. So making what's more or less a light roux here, just flour and butter cooked together. You wanna cook out some of that raw flour taste, just get a nice almost paste. Get some of the water evaporated from the butter. And we're gonna add half a cup of white sugar. Give that a quick whisk to combine it. Then half a cup of packed brown sugar. So I just like to use the bag and my hand, kind of pack it in there. Again, just whisk it all together, keep it cooking the whole time. Add a quarter cup of water. We're just gonna cook this a couple more minutes till everything's combined, all the sugars dissolved, we get a nice caramel sauce. Add a little bit of spices to it, just a teaspoon of cinnamon and a half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. You can always leave the spices out if you want more of a pure apple flavor, or add more spices like ginger or allspice if you want a little more kick to your apple pie. So we're just gonna grab all our nice thinly sliced apples, throw them in the pot. Make sure you get every last little piece, and then grab a spatula, just slowly and gently stir it together till all the apples are fully coated. We're gonna be careful to not break the apples up so you get nice full apple slices, create great layers throughout the pie. Pie crust makes its return, so it was in the fridge for about 30 minutes while I peeled and sliced the apples and made the sauce, and then I just had to wait a few minutes before I could go ahead and roll this pie crust out. Just go edge to edge, add a little flour so it doesn't stick. Forgot to do that early on, but my pie crust was firm enough that it was all right. Just want to roll it out till you get a nice 10-inch pie crust. Traditionally, people kind of wrap it around the rolling pin and then roll it out onto your baking pan, but I just kind of picked it up. I'm just going to push it into the sides, careful not to tear it, so it kind of lift up a little bit as you go. Then I created a few dimples, not really necessary, just felt like the right thing to do there. I'm an amateur more or less when it comes to baking, just enjoy doing it. So usually just look at a few different recipes, maybe watch a couple videos and then make my own recipe from there, kind of using my understanding of cooking. So grab my second pie crust. I'm going to roll this out a little bit wider so that I can cut it into strips. I'm going to use this to make a lattice topping. You can use a pizza cutter for this, or there's even a designated tool to make nice lattice topping, so every strip is identical, but I happen to have my knife out, so go ahead and use that. It's safe to use on a silicone mat. So just go ahead, cut these in about 1-inch strips. Forgot to press record for this.
Crud.
There you have it. Decided to take it apart, go ahead and make it from scratch so you can kind of see the process. Knew it wouldn't be quite as pretty the second go around. You know, the dough's been worked over twice, but wanted to show you my full process. So go ahead and pour the apples into the pie crust, and then I'm grabbing my dough strips, lay them on there, and then fold them back and put your other pie crust underneath. Actually want to do it like alternating one after the other. Forgot to do that step this second time go around. So as I said, just kind of putting the pie crust on there. It's not going to be, a work of art, but it's going to taste great, look pretty good. So grab the scraps, go ahead and put them around the edge as well. That way I get a nice kind of extra crust. And then I'm using my fingertips to kind of create a flute pattern. This will help seal it as well. Then go ahead and make an egg wash. I decided to do a white egg wash, so this will give it some nice shine, but not as much color as a traditional whole egg wash. Or you can add milk, that'll give it some more color. There's all sorts of different styles. So just for this one, separate out the egg yolk, add a little bit of water to the egg white, and then just use a pastry brush to spread that over the whole pie. Just give it a nice shine, some extra color. Grab a little bit of aluminum foil, put that on a sheet pan, put the pie on there. That'll just help in case any mess spreads out. You're not gonna burn up your oven. Throw that in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I preheated that earlier. As I said in the intro, using some store-bought pie crust as well. No shame in that. Still a great product. Not quite as flaky and flavorful as the homemade variety, but still really good, and people won't complain. So as I said as well, I had 5 pounds of apples, so enough for the 2 pies. Just gonna go ahead and pour that in there. Package said to cut off the bottom edge if you're doing a 2 crust filled pie, so went ahead and did that. Go ahead and grab the second pie crust, put that on top. It's been on my counter for a little bit, so it's thawed out and then cracked a little bit, so just use my hands, bring that back together, crimp the edges, and then grab my paring knife, cut a couple slits in the top, and just brush it with a little bit of egg wash. So, a slight difference between store-bought and homemade, but save yourself some time and effort. I wanted to focus on the homemade apple pie, so had that in the oven at 425 for about 15 minutes, then drop the temperature down to 350, cook that another 35-40 minutes. You want the apples to be soft to the touch, but still a little bit of firmness to it. The crust is nice and golden. Make sure you let your apple pie cool for at least a couple hours before slicing it. This just allows everything to kind of set up. So I'm cutting this 8 pieces, just cut down the middle, rotate it 180 degrees, cut that, rotate it again, and then go back and get your last 2 slices. I don't have a pie server, but a nice big old spoon works just as well. So just using that, scoop that underneath, get myself a nice serving of pie. Go back, make sure I get those last little bits. It did stick a little bit to the bottom of the pan, but the crust is still nice and flaky, especially on top. Go ahead and try some of this apple pie. So good though. Crust is nice and flaky. Way better than store-bought, but as I said, you can do store-bought as well. Apples still have a little crisp to them, but nice and soft as well. Got that cinnamon, sugar, really well balanced, sweet and kind of spicy. Those different apples, the tartness from the Granny Smith, sweetness from the Fuji, the Cosmic Crisp kind of brings it all together. This apple pie is really something else. If you like this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.